The sun is the source of life on Earth, the center of our solar system and the most important star in the sky for humans. But how much do we really know about this fiery ball of plasma that sustains us? And what secrets does it in fact hold for the future of humanity and for our planet? Our next poll gets you all the details.
Sun, the source of all life on planet Earth. The giant ball of fire is the major source of energy for Earth's oceans, atmosphere and land. Every 1.5 millionths of a second, the sun releases more energy than all humans consume in an entire year. Without the sun's heat and light, life on Earth would not exist. The sun can also get furious, sending out blasts of plasma, solar flares which can wreak havoc. It can cause power grid, cell phone and GPS disruptions. Knowing more about the effects of the solar wind is not only important to those of us who live on Earth, but also for future astronauts. After its feet firmly on the lunar surface, India is set for a leap towards the sun. The Aditya L1 mission is India's first dedicated solar mission, which aims to study the sun from a unique vantage point, the Lagrange point L1, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from Earth. This is a point where the gravitational forces of the sun and the Earth balance each other, creating a stable orbit for a spacecraft. But Indians have been curious about our parent star for a long time. Aryabhata, India's first satellite. Aryabhata, launched in 1975 by a Soviet rocket, took the first peep at the sun. It carried a payload to measure X-ray emissions from the sun. Long before that, the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest and most sacred texts of Hinduism, dating back to around 1500 BC, mentioned the sun as the source of light, heat, and energy. It also described solar eclipses, solstices, and equinoxes. Again, the Surya Siddhanta, a Sanskrit treatise in astronomy dated to the 4th and 5th centuries, estimated the diameter of the sun as 1.39 million kilometers, which is very close to the modern value of 1.392 million kilometers. And Aditya, which means sun in Sanskrit, is set to examine the sun from a closer proximity. We'll take the scientific quest to a greater height. Clearly, ancient Indians were high on scientific research on the sun and its relation to other celestial bodies. They used observation, logic, and mathematics, and experimentation to develop their theories and methods. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of why this mission is in fact so important, we're being joined by Mr. Mahesh Anand, who's a Professor of Planetary Science and Exploration at the Open University in London. Now, Professor Anand, thank you very much indeed, sir, for speaking to us here in WION. Now, this is an important mission that ISRO is going to be setting up. Aditya L1 is what it is called. Now, tell us why it is so important for us to study the sun.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your program. These are very exciting times. Only just over a week ago, I was talking to you about the successful landing of Chandrayaan-3, and here I am talking on the eve of the launch of Aditya L1 mission. That is actually a solar observatory, which is going to go to a stable orbit, what is known as a Lagrangian point L1, the Earth-Sun Lagrangian point. And from there, it will actually use, it's a suite of instruments to observe the sun, make several measurements, of the solar wind particles that actually will arrive at this L1 point, but constantly it will monitor our sun. And as you know, your previous video actually very beautifully explained why it is so important, why sun is so important for everything to do with life on Earth, and sun is our star in the solar system. It is really important as scientists for us to actually understand how sun works. Increasingly, our lives are getting dominated by technologies, and those technologies can be severely disrupted when sun is not in its happy mood, so to speak. So you have certain events called coronal mass ejections, where charged particles from the sun, they actually are ejected and they arrive at Earth, and they can disturb telecommunications, power stations, all sorts of things.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, for a lot of people who would not understand as to how this exploratory structure in fact works. Now, Aditya L1 will be going pretty close to the surface of the sun, and it will be carrying out a lot of observations in terms of how the sun in fact works. The temperature, the surface temperature of the sun is said to be about 6,000 degrees centigrade. So how close does Aditya L1 actually get to the surface of the sun, and what will this observatory actually do there?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. So I think it is important to let your viewers know that actually the Aditya L1 is not going to go very close to the sun. It is only going to travel 1% of the total distance, which is between the Earth and the sun. So the total distance between the Earth and the sun is about 150 million kilometers, whereas Aditya L1 is only going to travel 1.5 million kilometers.
Right.
So that's really important to understand. Secondly, as I mentioned, it has a suite of instruments that can actually do a whole suite of measurements. And two key measurements that two instruments would do is they would measure, or monitor rather, the temperatures of the what is known as the corona of the sun, which actually has a temperature of 1,000,000 degrees Celsius, 1,000,000 degrees, right? This is the corona of the sun. But just below the corona, the upper atmosphere of the sun is only about 7,000 degrees Celsius or so. So what scientists don't understand is how can, within the sun itself, in the upper atmosphere and the very outermost part of the region, how can there be such a huge temperature contrast? What is the mechanism? What process is actually driving the temperature variation? And what happens when sometimes, as I mentioned, these coronal mass ejections happen? What causes them?
Right.
And is there a routine to it or predictability to it so that you can actually predict in future by observing sun's activity right now that this might happen at a given time so that we are better prepared here on Earth to deal with those situations?
Absolutely, indeed. Thank you very much, indeed, Professor Anand, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
My pleasure.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.